Hi everyone, this is Leatherass for StoxPoker.com. Today I'm going to do something a little different, and what I'd like to do is talk about game selection and poker ace. And what I'm going to do is kind of go through all of that, and this is going to be part one in a two-part video series. So what I'm going to do is spend a short amount of time reviewing game selection and how to use poker ace, followed by the second part, which is going to be me two-tabling a, I'm not sure which limit yet, but I'm going to be two-tabling a couple of 6-max games most likely. So generally what I do is I sort of broaden my range of limits anywhere from 2-4 to 10-20. 2-4 is my fallback game if I can't find good games higher than that. But I would say 3-6 is primarily where I play, and the games have to basically be progressively better for me to sit the higher I go. So if I'm going to sit in a 10-20 game, it's going to have to be really good, because that's a pretty risky investment versus what I'm used to playing for. And so if I'm going to put up that kind of risk, it's going to have to be something that has a really high expectation. So I guess you could argue whether that is logically the best thing to do in terms of just EV. Probably not the best, but for me and my risk tolerance, that's what makes the most sense for me. So what I'm going to do is go through the games here, and what I look for are high players per flop percentage and average pot size. And then among those games, I then choose, what I do is open the table, and then I then make sure that it is actually, in fact, a good game. And then I just basically try to find, I normally 8-table, I try to find the 8 best games spread out among these limits. So I just keep my eyes peeled, and I'll sit anywhere, like if I find a pot limit, full ring game that's short-handed or something and has a high players per flop, and there's some bad players sitting, I'll sit there. I'm not picky. I just want to be where bad players are. I think that's really vital to your win rate. I think that is maybe as crucial as how you played certain hands. If you're against bad players, it sometimes doesn't matter if you play all that well or not. As long as you're the best player sitting at your table, you're going to do well. So, I think it's really crucial, and that's why I've decided to take the time and make a video dedicated solely to this. So I will actually probably play a few hands in this video, but I want to talk about this stuff. So, okay, so here's a good example. This pot size, $80, pretty, reasonably high. Players per flop is high, so let's check it out. Okay, so my poker ace numbers are coming up. I don't have any numbers on really anyone, and this guy's a 43. So I should definitely take a seat here, because as much as I play and as huge of a database as I have, if I don't have numbers on someone, they're an unknown, and probably not very good, because if I have numbers on a lot of numbers on all the regulars, so chances are, if he's an unknown, unless it's a new pro from another site that's just opened up a new account, he's probably not going to, he's probably going to be mediocre at best. So those are obviously guys I'd like to sit with. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab this seat here and, just keep on scouring. So here's a good example here. Average pot size 237, players per flop 66. So let's check it out. Sometimes it doesn't mean a whole lot. I don't know exactly how many hands they measure this over. I'm not really quite sure of the method, but if you get those kind of numbers, you should check it out. So I'm not altogether sure here. Let's see. I've got a guy with 360. What I also look for is guys that don't. I don't want to waste my time really with guys with like $80 stacks and stuff like that at a 3-6 game, but a guy that sits in with 360 is perfect, because he's got a deep enough stack to where there's some play, but he's clearly not a good player, because good players don't sit in with less than a full buy-in. They just virtually, almost never do. Maybe there's a person or two I can maybe think of that does, sits in with a half buy-in or something that does well, but it's just pretty rare case. So for the most part, guy that sits in with less than a full stack is 99% plus for sure not a good player. So I think we're just going to take this seat here, and it's it's somewhat more full ring. I don't really like that too much, but again, I just think there's really no substitute for having bad players. So we're just going to kind of keep looking around, and maybe we'll check out some 5-10s here. Let's see this one here. Okay, so I have a note on this guy, and basically I take notes on the regulars, and I take notes on the fish. So when I see a guy with a note on it, I know exactly what he is. If he's not some guy that I completely recognize, then he's obviously a fish. This guy has some pretty solid numbers, so my guess is I have a note on him because he's probably pretty good. So this guy's a 34 VPIP. This guy's an unknown. This guy's a short stack. I'm going to take a pass on this table for now. I believe this guy's more of a loose aggressive type. I don't think he's bad. This guy's an unknown and then a short stack. If I'm going to sit at 5-10, I'd prefer to have just a little bit better situation than this. It's certainly worth sitting, no doubt, and oftentimes I will sit there, but for right now I'm just going to keep looking. So we'll just kind of keep going through it here. Let's go back down, maybe we can find some 240s. Okay, 45%. Yeah, it's a bunch of just medium stacks, one short stack, so definitely a spot I should be sitting. Okay, so we have a 37, a 36 VPIP. We have this guy who's kind of a nitty tight guy. I'm not really concerned with him. So it looks reasonably solid. Okay, so let's check out this one here, just because there's only a few left at the 2-4. It looks like, or a few with only 5 people at it. So it looks like this one might be fairly decent. So a couple of medium stacks, a couple short stacks. Certainly no one too threatening. I don't, this isn't my first choice, but I do want to get a few tables going for the video so I can move on. I'd really, obviously you prefer bad players with full stacks. That's as good as it gets. But, at least this has bad players on it. So, and there weren't very many tables open for me to grab. So for the video purposes, I'm just going to take this top left table and be pretty happy with it. Okay, so we can talk a little bit about the poker ace numbers and how I use them. The shark here on the bottom right screen, he has a 43 VPIP, that's the top left number. The top right is his pre-flop raise, and then we'll just move downwards. Below his VPIP is a 4.0, that's his aggression factor, and just to the right of that, 37 is the number of hands I have on him. And then I have these white numbers on the bottom, and what they mean is the top left among the white ones is fold. Percentage of the time he folds to the flop bet. The one to the right of that is went to showdown. The bottom left is attempt to steal. And the bottom right is folded big blind to steal. So I'm going to squeeze both these hands here on the left side of your screen. Generally, it almost always works first hand on the table. Of course, I probably jinxed myself here, but it's a no-brainer the first time. Okay, so it looks like it's going to work on both. I definitely recommend just doing that your first hand. Unless you're really trying to create a tight image, they give you credit almost 100% of the time if your first hand at the table. Queen 5 offsuit, I'm not going to raise. So when I'm squeezing, what I'm looking for are, first of all, it's generally weak to bad players that are limping in pre-flop. This one's getting short-handled on the bottom right. But it doesn't do me any good to squeeze them if they're going to call a lot and they're also going to call my flop bet a lot. So, okay, easy call at the tens. So what I look for is people with a really high fold to flop bet percentage. King 7 obviously not worth playing even with all those people in. And what that means is basically that I can raise them up, and they're going to fold to my flop bet so often that I've created a very profitable situation for me, because I'm building a little pot pre-flop so I can take it away post-flop. And then I'm also going to make some hands. So it's a really great situation when you have guys with a high fold to flop bet percentage. And I don't squeeze guys that don't fold, because that just doesn't make any sense to me. I might as well, you know, be lighting my money on fire. You know, if I'm gonna, I'm just gonna push strong hands for value against opponents such as that. Okay, King Jack suited. I don't have any numbers, but I think this is definitely a good squeeze opportunity. I don't have any numbers on Arctic Wizard, but the only worry is that he could fold and the shark is so loose he might just call me, but at least I do have some kind of hand. So what I did was make it about 4 times the original Razor's bet size. And that's, you know, a general guideline. So he disconnected and then he called. Okay, so I'm going to have to be willing to go broke here with this hand. I flopped about as good a flop as I can hope for. So I'm going to give him a little room to maybe look like I think I'm weak, and I'm going to lead out for 135 into 210. And if he shoves, it's probably not a great situation for me, but I certainly can't fold. Okay, looks like I got a stack, so that's nice. What would stocks say? That's a good result for me. Okay, so here's a good example here. I made that weak lead into the pot, and he shoved on me with King 4, so I had him drawing dead. And so it's just little plays like that, you know, just subtle little things that you can do to sort of manipulate the actions of your opponents. I don't always weak lead there, but, you know, it just felt like, you know, maybe something that might not be a bad idea to do there. So it looks like that weak lead gained me about an extra $600 or $500. And the Jack 8 suited, I'm going to raise because this is somewhat of a positive implied odds hand here against this player. A7, I'm just going to raise it against the limper. You know, it could be anything with him. It looked like we might have Arctic Wizard a little tilty here. So I definitely am not looking to leave this table until I get the last $279 of his. And the other player appears to be pretty awful as well. So it should be a great table for me. I'm probably already going to just go ahead and tighten up a little and maybe not raise that A7 there. It looks like all I've got to do is sit back and wait for some kind of hand, and Arctic Wizard is just going to put all his money in and pay me off. So if you're watching this, sorry stocks for picking on you. We had that thread you just saw in the forums where the guy Stocks Raider made a YouTube video mimicking a few of your videos, so I just thought I'd throw that in. 310 is certainly an easy fold, but it looks like, you know, this, like I said, this is just going to be part 1 in a 2-part series. It looks like what I'm going to do is call it a video here in a minute or two, and I hope you guys have enjoyed or have been helped in some way by this game selection ideas that I use. I'm going to fold the 4s here just because I don't really think I have set odds. Well, you know what, maybe I will just put in a call here he has a little more money than I originally thought. I'm just going to try to flop a set, and I'm not going to... He's playing so crazy, I'm not going to try to get cute with these fours. But basically the idea is that if you have a comfortable bankroll situation and you are also comfortable playing an array of limits, I think it's very beneficial. I'm going to squeeze the 6-7 suit here. I think it's very beneficial to look around in as many different places as you possibly can for bad players. If you limit yourself to just one limit, the 6-7 here, I'm going to actually just try and check raise this all in. And 9-5 I'll raise. Okay, now I'm going to take a stab. And I'll raise the 6s. But if you do have the bankroll and you are comfortable playing an array of limits, even if they're a little bit lower than what you're used to or a little bit higher, I really recommend looking a limit or two below or above your normal games and just looking for good games. If you confine yourself to one limit, I don't feel you really are always sitting at the best games. And I think the value in always being in a good situation is just so huge and really worthwhile. I mean, if you think about the theory that you could be, let's say, well, they use this analogy like you could be the fish, you could be the 10th best player in the world, but if you're sitting with the 9 other best players in the world, you're a fish. And you could turn that logic on its head and say if you can find the 9 worst players in the world and you're the 10th worst, you're the man. So oftentimes, more so than how you play, it's important just to find good games, and that's why I felt it was important to make this video. I'm going to fold the King-7 here, and I'm going to play out the rest of the free hands and wrap it up. Sometimes I'll put in a call there with the King-7. A lot of it is I wanted to finish my thoughts there, and it was kind of a marginal spot anyway, so I just decided to fold it there. But depending on the opponent, I can, justify a couple different plays there. So it looks like our buddy on the bottom right, Arctic Wizard, busted out. Oh, he busted out with 9 high on a Queen 7-7 flop. So that's kind of disappointing, and I'll probably, well, I'm wrapping it up anyway, so I'm going to leave. But when you find a guy like that, you definitely want to try to not leave. Hopefully in part 2 of the video I can talk more about how I use the poker ace numbers as well. And I think that can also be very beneficial. I recommend putting as many of these poker ace numbers as you can up on your screen that you can sort of mentally handle. I know for me it's kind of a challenge to see so many numbers on the screen and process all that information when I'm making a decision. But if you can, I recommend putting as many as you can. With that said, I'm going to wrap it up, and I hope you enjoyed this, and I look forward to making part 2 of the video, and I hope you guys enjoy that as well. Take care.